Your stock exhaust is robbing your four-wheel drive of power. We're going to be comparing a standard and aftermarket exhaust to show you the shocking restrictions that your factory system has. Then we're going to show you what an upgrade can do for your modern engine. We're also going to be looking at catback and DPF back systems to see if they actually make a difference, and then we're going to be answering some of your exhaust questions as well. Should I delete my DPF? To understand how your factory exhaust is a restriction, you need to briefly touch on how an engine works. A petrol engine mixes fuel, spark and oxygen to create an explosion. That moves a crankshaft that then turns your wheels. Diesels use the heat of compressed air instead of a spark. This explosion creates a hot gas that needs to escape the combustion chamber. Your exhaust job is to remove that gas as quickly as possible, to let fresh oxygen re-enter the combustion chamber and, therefore, allow the engine to continue running. A factory exhaust like this one is designed to be quiet, cost-effective and emissions compliant. Because of that, there are a lot of restrictions in the factory system. All modern four-wheel drives have some form of emissions control system in the exhaust. In petrols, you'll have catalytic converters, and in diesels these days, you'll have what's called a DPF. Both of them are designed to remove harmful emissions and soot from the vehicle's exhaust system, so removing them is usually illegal. So the question then becomes, are DPF back or catback exhausts actually worth it? Let's find out. First up, let's have a look at the diameter of the piping. So on this standard exhaust, the internal diameter of this pipework straight off the back of the cat is around 50 mil, 2 inches. Compare that to this King Brown system over here, and the ID of the piping is 60 mil. So straight away off the back of the cats, you've got a more free-flowing system, and you can see here, there's less bends and everything can just flow nicer out the back of the exhaust. As we move down the exhaust, the factory pipe uses restrictive crush bends, while the aftermarket exhaust uses a mandrel bend, meaning a ball runs through the pipe to keep its diameter consistent all the way through, improving flow. Another really important area to look at with the aftermarket exhaust you want for your vehicle is in the quality of the weld. So have a look, particularly where they're welded with the hangers and on the flanges as well. You don't want too many welds in your system, but you also want them to be nice and strong. You want good penetration and nice, tidy welds. You can see here on this exhaust, you've got welds at the flanges and the hangers, and that's about it. There's no welds joining the pipe together like you have on this system back there. If you have too many welds in the system, you can actually create weak points, and there's just too much going on. You're adding too much to the exhaust when you don't need it. Another area you really want to pay close attention to are the mounting points of your exhaust. Firstly, you want to make sure it picks up on factory mounting points. That's standard. But the thing you really want to look out for, see here, you've got what's called an arch bracket. And what these will allow is for the load to be distributed much more evenly across the exhaust. A lot of aftermarket exhausts, they'll just weld this bar to the pipe itself. It'll be fine for a couple of years, but because you don't have much of a surface area for the weld to hold on, over time it's just going to move around and eventually it's going to crack. But with these arch brackets here, you're distributing the load much more evenly and you've got much more of a surface area for the mount to hold onto the exhaust. Another thing to look out for is if your aftermarket exhaust has a flex joint. If you've got a diesel vehicle, having a flex joint in your exhaust is absolutely essential. Just because of how diesels run, they're a little bit rougher and there needs to be a little bit more movement in the exhaust system. So the flex joint allows for the different harmonics of a diesel engine, but on a petrol engine, they run much smoother. So a flex joint isn't essential in your aftermarket exhaust on a petrol engine. Material thickness of your exhaust is also really important. Aftermarket exhausts like this one will use a thicker wall stainless steel pipe, and it means it'll withstand corrosion and knocks that little bit better than your standard exhaust. For example, you want to look for around a 1.5mm wall thickness like this one. This will eventually be a King Brown 4x4 exhaust, but with a thicker wall, it means you get a stronger, tougher exhaust that's going to last longer when you punish your four-wheel drive. You'll typically either see 304 grade or 409 grade stainless steel in an exhaust system. 304 is generally more corrosion resistant as it has a higher chromium content inside the steel. However, 409 grade stainless is much more malleable and therefore more resistant to the shock of heating up and cooling down. Therefore, it's generally much more suitable to four-wheel drives and it's more resistant to cracking over time. As the gases from your engine travel down the exhaust, they'll reach your muffler. Now, we've cut open a factory muffler to show you what's inside and show you why they're so restrictive. So first up, over here, this is where the gases will enter from your engine. They'll come through, then they've got to come through this middle pipe and then back out this pipe and then continue out the back of the exhaust. You've got little perforations on the pipe here for gases to expel through here, and then you've got these little relief holes as well so that gas can work its way out. Then you've got an echo chamber here. You can see why this is so restrictive. All of this is designed primarily to reduce noise. The problem with all these restrictions is they make your engine work hard to overcome them. It's like trying to blow through a small straw instead of a large one. It's a lot harder with the small one. The same idea is what's happening with your engine and your factory exhaust, which is why your factory exhaust robs your engine of power and fuel economy, because it's working a lot harder. Now, let's cut open an aftermarket muffler and show you the difference in internal packing and flow. You can see it's a much different design. So you could probably almost see, if I look like that, you might even be able to see me through there. The exhaust will travel through in a much less restrictive path, and you've got this fiberglass packing. You'll notice in a performance muffler, it's actually quite long. The factory muffler, they're quite short. When they're longer strands, they interlock better together, which means they're better at dampening the sound as the gases pass through. These perforations in here, it means with longer strands that fiberglass packing isn't gonna work its way back through the perforations. And you've also got this overbraid on the side of the piping to help stop that as well. Another thing to note with this muffler is you'll notice there are no welds on it. They've actually got what's called a lock seam all the way around, which is really strong. OEM mufflers will do this as well, but on a performance muffler, it's far stronger. And then also here, you can see it's double skinned. And again, that's for strength as well, particularly in higher horsepower applications. We've got an aftermarket King Brown 4x4 exhaust installed on this diesel Ford Ranger Raptor. You might be thinking, where's the muffler? Well, the beauty about leaving the DPF in place is it almost acts like a muffler in and of itself, which means you don't need it in your aftermarket exhaust system, and you're not going to get a loud, annoying drone that you would if you're straight piping a normal vehicle. So you can keep the DPF in place, keep it all legal, but still help get those exhaust gases away nice and quick. Another thing to mention is bang for buck. This is a really cost-effective upgrade because all you're doing is replacing a couple of pipes. It's not going to break the bank, and it'll help just get those exhaust gases away quicker and make your engine run just that little bit better. Proper fitment of an aftermarket exhaust is also a crucial thing to look out for. An exhaust that's been poorly designed or it's not suited to your vehicle will have issues with clearance around areas like your diff, your transfer case, even around the spare wheel at the back here, or it could be even hitting your cab floor. And believe me, nothing is worse than a rattling exhaust when you're midway through a trip. It's also important to get a quality Australian-made exhaust so you know you're getting a quality product and it comes with a good warranty. It also means you can speak to someone if you're having any issues. Now we're going to talk to Mike from Pacemaker about their latest project for the new Raptor. Mike has been in the exhaust game for over 40 years and has picked up a few tips and tricks along the way to make your exhaust last. We're underneath a Ford Ranger Raptor, the petrol variant, and the factory exhaust system has a valve set up in it so you can change the exhaust note as you're driving. Mike and the team here at Pacemaker are developing their system for the vehicle. Mate, take us through it a bit because it's pretty cool.
Yeah, okay, so we're right up in the middle of developing a factory catback twin 3-inch exhaust system for the Raptor. We've already developed the muffler section, which is in here. Some people want a little bit quieter for towing and that type of thing, whereas the other part of the market will want to try and extract as much note as they can. So this is the second part of the puzzle, and this is the pipe-only version, which fits in the same position. The next stage is to develop our valve, which will work off the OEM motor. So the motor will come off the existing OEM exhaust, and it will bolt down to a Pacemaker valve. And we've left enough room back in this section up here so that the valves can then be relocated up and out of the way and operate as an OEM valve would operate.
So you could still have your upgraded 3-inch exhaust, but the factory valve setup will be in it, so you can still change the exhaust modes depending on what you use in the vehicle.
Yeah, the idea is it comes in like, I think, a 3 or 4 stage of valve operation, and the idea will be that if we open up the exhaust and make it a little bit louder, there will be times when people will just want to be able to shut it up, and they will be able to do it by using the OEM buttons on the dash.
Very cool. With Mike being such a wealth of knowledge, we took the opportunity to quiz him on some of your exhaust questions. So let's get into the questions because there's some awesome ones here. Now, the first one is from Zach Harrison, and he said, if you upgrade your exhaust, do you need to tune your engine?
There's two answers to that, yes and no. For most people, doing a catback or a DPF back style exhaust, absolutely not. It is probably the best bang for buck upgrade you can do on exhaust. Now, if you want to go one step further and do aftermarket cats and those sort of things, yeah, absolutely. To get the most out of your upgrade then is to go to a tune.
Yep.
But really for the average person in the street who just wants to enjoy a bit more of a note, a little bit more power, and do a catback, absolutely no problem at all.
This next one's from the Curry Cruiser, and he asked, why does a DPF affect his exhaust sound?
The DPF itself will always be there. It will always capture particles. It'll always need a burn, and it'll always be a silencer of some sort of nature. However, there's no reason why you need to have all the constant restrictions after that. So the DPF itself will act as a muffler, and that's why in most cases you can get away with just a pipe-only system from a DPF back.
This next one's from Tricky1C, and it's pretty obvious answer for this one, but should I delete my DPF?
Absolutely not. I mean, apart from the fact that it is against the law, it provides a necessary service in the exhaust. It allows you to have your diesel vehicle on the road. You don't really need to. If you can just increase the airflow behind the DPF itself will become a little bit more efficient. So, but if you leave a restrictive factory exhaust behind there, then the DPF itself is certainly going to be a blockage in the exhaust.
Yeah, okay, so for sure, leave the DPF in, and I suppose this probably leads into the next question from Cooper Perry. What's the most important thing to look for when it comes to buying a new exhaust?
Well, you need to make sure that you don't skimp on the material. You add things into it like laser cut flanges and brackets that are designed to take load, that type of thing. Now, I guess for the average person, they're never going to know that just by looking at an exhaust, so I guess it's up to us to educate. But if you do buy from companies like Pacemaker, you do get that as a consideration. So it's really quality is number one.
This next one's from Team Short Rooster 4x4. He said, why not just go for a straight pipe?
Well, you can.
Yeah, you can. You can if you want.
You can. There's two schools of thought. I mean, some people really, they think that by putting a pipe-only exhaust on their turbo back, that they think it's going to suddenly sound like a Kenworth truck. It doesn't. You have some very nasty resonance that can go through that exhaust. A simple resonator on the end of the tailpipe is enough to knock that high resonance over, but my preference will always be to run a center muffler.
Well, that leads us into this next question from Lucas Sturgis. What's the difference between a muffler and a resonator?
Really good question. So really a muffler, its origins really was a box that they stuck in the middle of the car and allowed the sound waves to bounce off things like baffles and things like that. So, but generally the size and the position of the muffler in the vehicle, in the center of the vehicle, determines what it is or dominates what it is. That is, it's a muffler. When you get to the tailpipe, and because straight through designs, including OEM, are looking for that last bit of polish, which is drone, that type of thing, they'll put something on the end and they will tune the length and the size of the diameter to knock out the resonance, which is what we call drone.
Well, Mike, there was some awesome information in there, and thanks so much for spending the time to answer some of our audience's questions. You're a wealth of knowledge, and I appreciate you sitting down with us. It's been awesome.
Thank you, Joe. Appreciate it.
So, getting a DPF or catback exhaust in your four-wheel drive will give you some benefits over stock. You get more flow in the areas we mentioned before, and it'll also help to get those gases out quicker, which makes it easier on your engine. The other thing too is it means you'll get a higher quality, longer lasting system under your four-wheel drive. Well, that's it from me, but I want to know what you guys reckon about aftermarket exhaust upgrades. You reckon they're worth it? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Catch you next time.